Control flow. The statements that you are writing into your program are generally executed from top to bottom in this order. They are written in the program. However, control flow statements breaks up the flow of this execution by applying the decision making through looping and branching. This gives your program the ability to conditionally execute particular blocks of the code. In this section, we will describe the decision making statements, the looping statement, and the branching statements. There are different ways to control the flow of your program. First, we will learn about the if-then. The if-then statement is a simple way to control the flow of your program. The if-then statement evaluates if a statement is true or false. If the statement is true, that means that the Boolean value of the statement is true. So it will execute the next line. You usually use the braces to enclose different statements that will be executed if the statement is true. But be careful, sometimes people write the code without braces. The problem is if you put maybe one line, the program would be right. You can test it. It will execute without errors and you will not have any problems. But if other people change your code and add another line after the single line, which is located after the if statement, then the result will be that the second line will not be executed because of the verification. But because now the second line is independent of the if-then statement. Therefore, it will always be executed. Then always use the braces when using the if-then statement. If you want more control in the if-then statement, you could use an if-then-else statement. You can put the else word at the end of this condition. The code that is inside of the else block will be executed if the expression that is then, if the expression that is evaluated is true. The then block that is after the else block will be executed. If not, it will not execute the else block as we said before. The one that is inside the rectangle, the braces in the then and in the else block help us to mark what statements are related to each block so we can know what lines of the code will be executed if the statement is false or true. Don't forget the use of braces. It's not a problem to put braces, but if you don't use braces, you will have a lot of problems, especially when the program is under maintenance. We have another way to do different elections of what lines you have to execute. For example, you can use the switch. It's like a if-then-else-if statement. You evaluate a value in an expression, and you can create different cases to execute depending on what the value is. The statement let you evaluate byte, short, char, and int primitive data type values. In the last version of Java, you can use complex types, for example, enumeration, the string class, and special classes like the wrapper classes. What are wrapper classes? Wrapper classes are objects that wrap certain primitive types. For example, character wraps char, byte with capital B wraps byte, short with capital S wraps short, and integer wraps int. This is to provide different constructors, different methods to operate with the primitive types, and you can use it in different APIs that need objects and not the primitive type only, the while and the do while statement. This statement is used to make loops. A loop is the execution of a set of sentences that you need to repeat a lot of times. The while statement also evaluates a statement to do the looping. This is how the while statement looks. The code inside the braces is executed repeatedly. There are different ways to make loops. For example, while and do while, the difference between these two is where you evaluate the expression, the conditional expression in the statement. For example, if you use while, this expression is evaluated in the beginning of the statement. Then you say, while this expression is true, then execute the next statements within the braces. If you use do while, the thread of the expression is executed one time at least. Be careful, because if you don't want this, you have to use while if you need to execute at least one time all the expression within the braces, you have to use do while. Then the expression is evaluated. If the expression is true, continue. If it is not, stop the loop. You can use while or do while to create infinite loops. Infinite loop is a way to repeat executions all the time. Always be careful. Your problem will loop forever if you don't break this statement. You have to use some conditionals, some branching statements to break this infinite loop. You can also avoid infinite loops by checking the variable behavior of the condition. The branching statements are break, continue. This will work in this way. Break, when you use break, the loop is broken and the flow continues after the braces that is within the condition. Continue. If you're using a conditional loop, it will make the flow to continue the execution at the beginning of this statement. Return will return if it's within a method, and if it is in the main method, we will finish the program. It is important to understand how does this branching statement work. For example, we have another control flow statement called for statement. This is the for statement. The for statement is a statement that we use to do a loop an exact number of times. For example, if you want to do a loop 10 times, you could start by declaring a variable with the value 0. You will use this variable in the condition section. The first time your code get executed, your variable will have the value 0. To stop the loop, you need to increase that value. So when the conditions get checked again, it will check the condition with the new value. In this example, the condition is count less than 10. The time will come when our variable, in this example count, will have the value of 10, and their condition count less than 10 will be false. So the code inside the for statement will not be executed anymore. We will analyze all these options of the control flow in an exercise because it's very important to understand between do while, and for statement and how you can break this execution. Let's go.